Hi, I'm Nicole Plante. I've owned Keel Realty this year for 20 years. I am born and raised in Westport and bought this building a couple years ago, and I've been renting it for almost 15 years. And I've been doing real estate for almost 25.
So I'm John Winters, and my brother and I, James, and I started New England Promotions back in the summer of 1983 with the America's Cup in Newport. And we find ourselves all these years later still operating the business here in Westport.
I came to own this business by being a mom to two daughters. I've been in commission sales my whole life. I moved back from Atlanta, Georgia after being there for 10 years in food service sales. And when I got back here, I wanted to be close to my kids and be with my kids more. So then it was a natural thing to be part of a commission sales base. Realtors didn't seem to answer my questions enough. So I kept digging and digging and digging, and I loved finding out the information myself, going to the registry of deeds, doing all that. So naturally, I dug in. I worked for somebody else, Pauline Messier from Village Realty, who is based in Westport. We had a great bond, still do, and I ended up working for her for a couple years, and then I opened Keel Realty. And it's not HGTV. It's more homework and doing the digging and getting dirty, and my kids don't want to do it. So as I say to people, it's not, but they watch all the shows on HGTV. So I joke, it's the hard work. It's more of the day-to-day, it's social work, it's helping people. The part that I still love is the helping the people, making sure you show up for people every single day, and getting the best scenario for them in their situation. So that's why I still love doing this, and that's why I got into real estate in the first place. It wasn't a sales call, it's dealing with people and helping people. And I wanted to be a social worker when I was a kid. I played basketball in college, and I went to a business school, I went to Bryant College, and everybody wanted me to be an accountant, things like that. It was a business track, and it wasn't where I wanted to be. And I kept going to help people. Everything that I did was kind of helping. And so this is both, we joke here that it's Keel social work because there's always people coming in and out the door. So we love that we have an open door policy. We love that we have people coming in, asking questions, asking for help. It doesn't have to be about real estate. It could be about a plan to get someplace, or how do I get a resource for a contractor? How do I get somebody? That's what I love about it still, because my day is never the same, which is awesome. And in the food service, I was in downtown Atlanta. I managed older gentlemen. I had the thick of it. Worked in the Olympics during the 1996 Olympics. That kind of tells you my age. But it was one of those things where you learned how to hustle and all of that. They put me in a territory that they said I was going to fail, and I didn't. I became one of their most profitable salespeople. But again, it was people connections, and that's where I kind of the evolution of coming and working in real estate kind of came, because I liked people. And when you like people, it kind of goes, this made it the natural transition. So it was helping build menus, helping people in the back of the house when they were out of food going to pick up their food. This is the same thing in a different way. You pick up their house before the showing, you pick up the thing. It's just a different version, and it's just a different version of it all. And I like to give back to this community too. We donate to a lot of causes in town too. And I think that's why I still love it. We've been asked to be bought out. We're one of the few independents still around. Most independents sell out to a bigger franchise. We haven't, because we want to stay local. We don't want our customers to be a number anymore. We don't want them to I don't want a quota to say I have to have so many new customers. I don't want to have so many agents. I don't want that. I want to go and help my clients. They're not a number. Because in this time, if you're just rolling through and knocking on doors, I've never cold called. I've never showed up on somebody's door. It's always been referral from a friend or another client, or that they got a postcard in the mail that I sold a house in their neighborhood, or they've walked in and said, oh, my friend just told me to come to you. I've been very lucky that that's how my business has been built, and I'm very thankful to the Westport community, Dartmouth community for that, because they've done that for me. And I'm very, very grateful. That's why I love giving back.
James and I originally came to Westport as a result of being in a band. My brother and I were in a rock and roll band, and the manager of the band at that time thought it might be a good idea if he could rent a house and we could all live in it. We could rehearse and record in it. And so he rented a house here in Westport on Main Road. Today it's the Westporter. That's the house we lived in and worked in and operated from. So that was all the way back in the late 70s, 78, 79, somewhere in there, into the early 80s. So that's where we lived. And then at some point, James and I moved to Los Angeles, the other side of the country. And we were doing music there, and we were also continuing to operate our business. We were there, James was there for 8 years until he finally bought a lot here in Westport, right on the water, and he built a home. And then a couple of years later, I got news that my mom was seriously ill. And so my wife and I made the decision to sell our house and move back. I had the only grandkids at the time. We thought it would be good to support her. And so we did. And my brother ran around with a real estate agent and collected a bunch of ideas for me to see. And my wife and I flew back just for a couple of days and found a house. And we live in that house today. So we moved back right at the year 2000, just as the millennium, the year changed from 99 to 2000. And bought that house. We live there today. And we continue to work and operate here in Westport on Main Road. We bought our first office unit back in 1999. And then when I moved back, this second unit became available, and I immediately bought it. I worked with Doris Matthews, who was a real estate agent in this area for many, 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 many years. And older people like me remember Doris. And she was great to work with, and she really helped me to execute it efficiently and quickly. And in the original band, I was always a keyboard player. I was raised to play keyboard. Sure. You know, as a kid, I learned classical piano, and then from there, you know, once I got older, it was, you know, B3 organ, and then synthesizers, and, you know, it expanded. Yeah. You know, it just kind of got into that sort of thing. So that was my role in the first band, but later on, I started to, for whatever reason, started to write songs. And the best way I could express them was to kind of vocalize them myself. I never thought I was a great singer or anything, but I could vocalize them, and I could get the idea across. And that morphed into me becoming the lead singer. So that happened, and so then I started recording my songs, and that's what took us to LA. Somebody had come to visit us in a studio that we had built actually in the Jefferson Borden mansion in Fall River. And we built a recording studio in there, started recording our material. Somebody from the area who was connected to the music business came and hung out with us and became enthused about what we were doing and introduced us to an engineer in LA who's originally from this area. His name is David Reitzes. He's from Fall River. And David was working for a big-time producer by the name of David Foster. Did a lot of big records. But he did like adult contemporary. So it was like, you know, Barbra Streisand and Michael Bolton and Whitney Houston, and, you know, like big adult contemporary. I wasn't that kind of an artist. We were a rock and roll band. But David Reitzes, he was a rock and roll kid, you know. I mean, he loved Zeppelin and all those bands. So anyway, long story short, David heard our stuff. We got invited to LA. We went to David Foster's studio in Malibu, and we worked. We worked at what was called the graveyard shift, which is when David Foster would be done during the day. He'd wrap his sessions up around 6 o'clock. We would come in at like 8 or 9 at night and work through the night into the morning. And it was really cool. And just long story short, David Rices, the kid I'm talking about who was engineering us, he worked with David Foster, and they were, at that time, they were working on Whitney Houston's record and the song The Bodyguard. I Will Always Love You. That was the name of the song. On the movie The Bodyguard. And David Rices, the young guy I was with, he was doing little mixes of it as they were going along, producing it, sending it to Clive Davis in New York. And he actually won a Grammy for it. David Rices' mix was selected to be used in the movie. He won a Grammy. And I think I understand that it was the #1 selling single of all time. And it was just phenomenal because, you know, when they were working on it, I'd hear it as we'd come in to do our thing. And, you know, it was like her singing to a piano. And it was like, wow, she's got a great voice. It wasn't anything I was really into at the time. I was a young guy. But it was phenomenal that this young guy from Fall River, you know, who was passionate about doing music and being in the music business, would actually achieve something like that. And it was really cool to watch. Just a little, I don't know how I went on to that side note, but it was really cool to see. And there's a number of people from Fall River that, you know, have gone out to LA. Jimmy Corey is another guy. One of my close friends, Tyler Botello, he's out there. He's been out there for, I don't know, 30 years now. And, you know, he in addition to doing music, he got into the acting side of things and, you know, ended up in a number of different projects. So it's been really cool. I was really fortunate to go out there and spend 10 years. It was really, really, really cool. But my family called me back, or at least I felt the call to come back. And I'm glad I did. I'm glad I did because for me, you know, being here, family, a small community like this, my home, my kids, got to know all the kids in town through the Little League and baseball, and then, you know, belonging to my parish. It's just, it's really, it really is a warm, sort of peaceful place. And I feel like it was a good place to raise our kids. I really do. We thought about raising them in LA. Even after my mother passed, my wife had to go back out there for some work. We came that close to closing on another home there. At the 11th hour, my father was alone and I decided no. And I guess I'm glad I did. I love living in Southern California, but this was a good place to raise my kids. And now as a kind of a senior guy, I'm happy here. I'm at peace. So yeah, I love it here.
My favorite place is East Beach. My husband and I got married there. Probably my second favorite place is Gooseberry Island to go for a long walk. I'm attracted to the beach. I moved back home for the beaches. I miss the beaches. I love sailing, but the beaches just... Cherry and Webb Beach is the most beautiful beach that we are so lucky to have. I think Westport is so underrated and people say, oh, there's so many people that have moved here. I think if they come for one weekend with a family member and they see the beaches that we have versus other areas, they do fall in love with it. And we're just so spoiled. We're just so spoiled. And we got married in a sunrise wedding. And it just started raining. It was hysterical, and that's just us. That's who we are. We don't like traditional anything. But it was amazing just to have watch the clouds come in, watch everything happen. We walk the beach all the time. He proposed to me there. That's our thing. That's how we do. My kids, if we all get together, we all just go for a walk on the beach. So I think that's our grounding spot. Sure. We pick up the seashells. We don't pick up the rocks here. You pick up the seashells, you look for sea glass, you just zone out. And sometimes we'll even go in the middle of the day just to take, if it's really stressful, just to chill out. Even this time of year, even in the winter, bundle up and go for a walk. Because I just think it's the most beautiful when there's no one around and it's just peaceful. And we're just lucky. And like we have houses that are on the beach that overlook the beaches, and in the summer you can't, there's just cars and stuff like that. And September is the most favorite month to be here. In October, it's absolutely stunning, and there's half the people. And everybody's back in school with their kids, and it's like and some of the businesses are closed for the summer, but you got Bayside still open. You've got some great places still open. Back Eddy still's open. It's just a great place to be.
You know, when I think of Westport, like most people, you know, I probably immediately think about, you know, Horseneck Beach and the Point, because it is so beautiful. And I've been lucky enough to travel a bit. And I can say Horseneck Beach is as pretty a beach as you're gonna find, at least, you know, on the East Coast. Love it. I also love my parish. I belong to St. John the Baptist. I love my parish. The cemetery across the street is where my parents are born. What else could I say? I love our location here on Main Road with the business, New England Promotions. The only thing that I'm a little disappointed in is we had an opportunity, I don't know if I should say this, but I'm going to. We had an opportunity to have a little center of town built a number of years back. The state was going to chip in, and there were some people who were trying to organize, you know, where we would, you know, create these sidewalks and, you know, create this sort of center of town where people could walk a little bit more freely, easily. And that didn't make it. It got defeated, and that was a little disappointing because I think we got a cute little center of town. And, you know, for the people who are a little older, and they do stroll around, I see them all the time, they cut through our driveway, it would have been nice. And Horseneck Beach, you know, I remember, you know, being a kid, and I mean a young kid, you know, probably like 7 or 8 years old, and my brother was 6, you know, we're 2 years apart. And I can remember being in the back seat of my dad's car, my father driving, my mother sitting shotgun, and James and I in the back seat, and we were going to Horseneck Beach, you know, and that was a little trip from Somerset. And I just can remember you know, my father would have the window down. I don't even know if there was air conditioning at that time in the car, but in that warm air blowing into the back seat, and then getting to Horseneck and getting out of the car, and of course the pavement was hot, but then you get on the sand, and the sand was warm and could even be hot, but it just felt so good under your feet. And you know, spending the day at the beach and the waves rolling and the sound of the waves, and being on the beach with our parents, and my mother would always, of course, pack something to eat and drink, and it was just really nice, and we did that a lot, you know, as we were growing up. And then when I got older, you know, then a bunch of years go by. I haven't been to Horseneck Beach, but when the band moved to Westport, and we got this house in Westport, of course, you know, thought about going to the beach. But we would go at different times because of the way our work schedule was. So sometimes we'd go at the end of the day, and that was a different experience. Because at the end of the day, you know, the sun is going down, and, you know, a couple of us would be just hanging out, of course, philosophizing, talking about philosophy and the world and the universe, you know, the big stuff. But it was cool because you were on the beach and it started to get cooler and the air started to change and the breeze picked up, and I just remember that, and it just really, has a lot of value to me. Now, at my age, I have a beautiful home and I got a beautiful pool in the back, and so I don't go to the beach as often. I really don't, but I do go sometimes on my birthday. When it's my birthday, my wife will pack a little dinner, but, hand foods. And my wife and I and my son Dalton and my daughter Jane, the four of us will go. And it's at the end of the day again, and it's really cool because the light gets really low in the sky and it gets kind of orangey. And there's something about being on the ocean. There just is. There's something about it. I think John Kennedy, I remember hearing him say that he thinks we're drawn to the ocean because our composition, the water to salt in our bodies is, it's very similar to the ocean, and maybe we're drawn to it. I don't really know. I don't mean to get too heavy, but but it's special, and it's been special to me since the time I was a little kid. And I don't go as often because I have the convenience of my home, but I do make it a point to go on my birthday. That's my Horseneck Beach story. And I also really appreciate the open spaces in Westport. Take it for granted. You live in cities. You really appreciate coming back here. And I think that's probably why we have such an influx in the summer. I don't blame all those people for coming here from Boston and New York or wherever else they're coming from. It's the open spaces, it's the trees and, the stone walls. And it's just, it really is picturesque when you step back. Of course, we're all in it. We're right against the tree. You don't look at it every day. But when you step back and look at it, it's just the open spaces and the landscape is just really beautiful. I would say yes. The thing that I think is missing, I think that little center of town would have really been nice. And maybe it would have sparked a couple of restaurants, a few more restaurants, maybe a bar. We have a restaurant. We have limited amount of restaurants, limited amount of bars. Not that I drink that much, but the whole idea of like a little, like a little town center where people gather. I think that's missing. I just do. But outside of that, no. Outside of that, I'm pretty content.
Is there anything missing? More local support of each other. I think we're expanding, we're going through growing pains right now. And I think we have people who've come in from different locations that don't know the roots of Westport. And I think a lot of Westport or local townies have growing pains of what they think the town shouldn't grow, but every town's growing across Massachusetts. And my answer to that is Westport is at the end of a map. We end up in water. So when they went for a drive during the pandemic, they came down Route 24 and they found a little road called 88 and it went straight to the water. And they found it's the end of the earth, but they found this most beautiful spot. And they found this road that had all these little houses off it for inexpensive money compared to where they were. And now we've got growing pains. Like we've got big McMansions going up, and we have people that want to retire here. We're a retirement community, but we've got to support our local people. We've got to support the local businesses. We've got to support our older people. So we are going through growing pains, and we've got to figure out a way to balance the wealth and the new people coming in, and the kids need help too. So there's a whole bunch of growing pains that we're going through as a town. But I think we'll get through it. I think this is a great town, and a lot of people really do love it, and a lot of people volunteer for it. So I think you'll see that. I know I speak up when I see things. The select board and planning board hear from me on a regular basis. But I think we as a town, there's not going to be one answer size fits all, because we are a farming community, which the land trust does a great job saving farms, because we need to save the farms. But we also need better housing for the elderly. We need a balance. And how do you find a balance? And when you're in growing pains, it's really hard. And so with the 2 trains coming in today's the first day of the trains. Every town is supposed to be at 10% that's abutting a train town. We are at 3.9%. We need to be at 10% affordable housing. We're not even close to that. But we have an elderly population that have a lot of nice, big, beautiful homes that may have 1 or 2 acres, because our minimum is 1.3 acres of land, but they can't maintain their homes. But we need a place that they can retire and be near their friends and not go to a housing complex in New Bedford, Fall River, up towards Taunton. They need to stay here. We need to find a way to keep our locals local. And I think there's got to be a way soon that we fight for them a little bit more. We're seeing the condos and stuff go up in bidding wars, because people with money can bid up to keep their family here. But it's also pricing out some of the locals, and that's sad to see. But we're anti-development because of certain reasons, which again, we want to protect the land, but we also need to fight for our locals. So we're in such a really weird situation as a little town, and I can see both sides every single day. And you sit and you talk to somebody and you go, God, I wish I had a little house that was 1,200 square feet with 2 little bedrooms and a bath for them. They can stay forever. That they just didn't have to do a yard, but I don't have anything in that price point for them. And that's a really tough thing, but they don't want to go to an apartment. They don't want to leave their family. And some of these people are born and raised in Westport, and they deserve to stay here. So and we fight as a company and as people to try to, with local banks, to try to find ways to help them stay here. Bay Coast has been great in helping them stay here, and helping them come up with financial plans if they can to stay here. And that's what we should do. The Council on Aging here is amazing for that. And that's one thing about this town that's really nice.